Remember when Sentinels were good? It's been a while, and to be honest, it doesn't feel like it's getting much closer to the good old days either. In April, their head coach Psycho was dropped, followed by TenZ needing a break from the roster due to an infected wrist, and then Def, their IGL, finally mutually parting ways with the roster. Coming into 2023, I think Sentinels fans everywhere hoped that this was going to be the year that the team would have their comeback. Look at these massive players from North America being lifted up by these Brazilian world champions. How could the team not have their comeback? Well, there was the whole roles thing, Pancada being relegated to Sentinel instead of being unleashed on Smokes, Sassy starting off playing controllers because the initiator jobs were being handed off to Zekken. Truthfully, it was weird. But what is going on with Sentinels now? I wanted to wait until this weekend's games were over before I made a video, because this was the week that Def has now left the roster, TenZ is coming back in, and there was a decent chance that things could look better. Admittedly, they were playing against Crew, which is the so far winless team of the Americas region, so I don't know how impactful a win was going to be insofar as their reputation goes, but a win is a win, right? And Sentinels did look better. The last 2 weeks have been absolute garb for this team, who got flattened by C9 and the previously struggling Evil Geniuses. Against EG, their fracture looked uncomfortable. Their attacks were slow and often involved 5-stack pushing, or just having Pancada lurk on the opposite side of the map to the other 4. Their engages often felt like they were lacking something, like they were out of sync with each other, or not necessarily doing their due diligence in checking parts of the map before committing. This also combined with Zekken continually pushing aggressively on parts of the map where he wasn't receiving adequate support to have his safety guaranteed, it all resulted in Sentinels walking away with 13 first deaths and Evil Geniuses with just 6. Not to mention the relative ease with which Evil Geniuses flanked Sentinels and the splintered 1v1s, Sentinels looked fledgling. Their own map of Pearl wasn't much better. In fact, it was actually worse, as Sentinels failed to pick up more than 2 defensive rounds. Compared to the tactical passivity of teams like Leviathan, who give space to their opponents before ruthlessly retaking it, Sentinels' passive defenses were forced. Despite running mirror comps, Sentinels seemed to struggle so much more against the smokes of EG, and especially their spam shots through it. They neglected to go hard on any kind of mid control and folded like paper on site. Even on rounds with man advantages, Evil Geniuses found gaps in Sentinel's intel to exploit against them in their positioning. When it came to facing C9, I think the expectations were lower simply by virtue of how damn good C9 have looked lately, but I don't know if they were this bad. Sentinels picked Lotus as their own map, and they scraped together 4 rounds. 4. They did have slow attacking rounds here too, just like they had against Evil Geniuses, but they admittedly seemed less lost, less blind. The problem was that with their late pushes, C9 always had a slew of utility ready to force back onto them. Whether it was Neon Stuns, or KJ Nanos, or Leaf aggressing into them, or all 3, C9 always had an answer. Again, Sentinels didn't watch their backs where they should have, and multiple times had C9 stick a defuse, knowing full well that Sentinels would be expecting a bait. Fracture again was rough, and for so much of it, it looked like Sentinels were simply going to be unable to put a single attacking round on the board. C9 were even running similar defensive strategies in every round without having Sentinels disrupt them at all, and in many cases led them to getting flanked and picked apart when they weren't expecting it. On their attacking half, Sentinels suffered 8 first deaths to Cloud9's 4, and even on rounds where they were ready to play on the space it gave them, they got caught out due to low intel on remaining enemies. By the end of the first half, Zekken was sitting at 1-12, seriously struggling to find the teeth that players like Leaf and Zeppa had on them. Things got better in the next half, but it was going to be a tall task to convert a 1-11 round differential to a win. Once again, Sentinels were 2-0'd. And I want to be on the train of, oh my fucking god, Sentinels are shit now, but I'm genuinely not on that train. And that's a lot for me because I've always kind of enjoyed stirring the pot of the anti-Sentinels rhetoric. Clearly there was an issue with Sentinels IGLing. I mean, that's why they mutually parted ways with Def, right? Something about this whole situation just gave this idea that he maybe wasn't the right IGL to be leading this team. And that's okay. Sometimes that is just the way it is. If you don't have an IGL that simply works with the way that the team operates, then you're going to fail at the first hurdle. The thing is that now they don't have an outright IGL. Marvd is taking some of the responsibility, but then so are Zekken and Sassy. And like, that's okay because it can bring in some more fluidity in the calling of the team, but it still may take some time to get used to. And TenZ being back on the roster might be a huge help too, because he is still totally cracked, but it might might mean that we see some compositional changes. For example, the double duelist comp that we saw against Crew on Bind. In the last 30 days, Tens has played only Jet and Neon, so I find it unlikely that he'll step into the Raze role, although he has played her in the past, and this could mean Sentinels rely more on Jet comps while playing Zekken on Initiators. Or maybe we'll see more flexing from Tens. Either way, taking out Def the controller and putting in Tens the duelist is going to have implications for the role distribution in this team. I could also raise the point of Kaplan being the new head coach now, but I actually think it's too early to be making judgments about that. Every week that Kaplan has been the head coach so far, there has been a new moving part to work with, whether that's a roster shuffle, whether it's losing your IGL, whatever it may be. There hasn't actually been just a consistent idea of what this team is. Now that the team can ostensibly settle into their current configuration, I think it's the upcoming games that are going to say more about Kaplan's capabilities of coaching this team. And I think if Sentinels were having issues coming from their kind of mid-rounding, their in-game cooling, the decisions that were being made in-game, whatever it is, maken isn't a word, made in-game, whatever it is, that's not necessarily a comment on the coach. So personally, I don't really have any concerns about it. I think a lot more of the problem with Sentinels came from their IGLing. And not to point the finger entirely at Def, because I think that would be unfair, but I did get this sense that the calls that were being made by Sentinels were either lacking information, not taking note of important information, or lack thereof, and not being as thorough as they could have been in a lot of their mid-round decision-making, and maybe having this new arrangement that can be more fluid will work a little better for them. And I do feel like a raging hypocrite right now because I have always been a huge proponent of Sentinels getting a real goddamn IGL, and now I'm saying that they're going to be fine without one, but I do think that this is different to their 2022 situation. I don't get the sense that there's a problem with pride or ego or stubbornness in what is happening here. I also think it's important to consider that a lot of teams these days sing the praises of the ability to kind of share the responsibility, particularly in mid-rounding, even if they do have a specific IGL, and having any member be able to contribute their knowledge, their ideas, their thoughts in the middle of the game and kind of run with that and have that trust to be able to do that. Not to suggest that that didn't happen in Sentinels at all up to this point, but maybe they can benefit from that kind of situation a little more now. Truthfully, even though Sentinels are not mathematically eliminated from playoffs right now, I don't think anyone is actually realistically expecting them to get there, but I do hope that having some of these changes and kind of learning from, I don't know, whatever wasn't working early in this season, they can actually move forward and grow from the position that they're in now. They have this new veteran in Marved come in, and Tens seems to be back kind of in good form, so that's great. And ultimately, it's great to own a Lamborghini, but if you don't know how to drive, you're not going to go very fast. And that's kind of the sense I get a little bit with Sentinels. I'm a fan of Def, but this just may not have been the right team for him. And I want to believe that that's what it is as well, because if that's not what it is and Sentinels still play like us, then I'm going to have to come back in a couple weeks and make another video talking about how I oversimplified this problem and I was wrong all along. And listen, I don't want to do that. No, really, I do believe in the ability on this team, and to be honest, where I used to kind of enjoy being anti-Sentinels, right now I'm kind of like, I'm rooting for them. So this is character growth for me as well. And I hope that it's going to be growth for the team. But let me know what you guys think about what has been going wrong on Sentinels, if they can start to improve, if they can get better, if we're going to see them grow throughout the rest of the season, because I have faith that they will. And I think that we see some good ideas from them. I just think we see kind of cutting corners and not a super strong thoroughness in a lot of what they do. And I really want to see that start to be fixed. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Mwah, mwah.